Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's third and final session of our Hit the Road to DevOps webinar series. Today, we're going to be covering what every CIO needs to know about DevOps. My name is Alexander Mazurek with Quint, Wellington, Redwood, and I'm your host today. Now, a few things about our organization, Quint, Wellington, Redwood. Quint is a global consulting firm and training organization dedicated to the improvement of IT's value to the business. We started over in Amsterdam in 1992. It's 2017 now, and we're celebrating our 25th anniversary. We're proud to say that we've grown to be a completely global company. We have over 250 consultants operating in 49 countries all around the globe. Our core business practices include sourcing, architecture, governance, service management, lean IT, agile, and DevOps, of course. For the last 3 years running, we have been selected as the top global advisor on sourcing and governance by the IAOP in the areas of client satisfaction, delivery of excellence, and innovative programs. And last off, we are a training organization and consultancy, especially in the areas of IT service management, lean IT, and DevOps. And I would like to be a thought leader and trendsetter in those areas as well. Now I'd like to introduce our speaker today. The third and final gentleman is Frederick Schucken. He is a principal consultant here with Quint. He is a leading practitioner of DevOps and Lean IT with us. But most importantly, he is the content board lead with DASA, which is the DevOps Agile Skills Association. And he helps develop the standard training and certification program for DevOps. He's very knowledgeable. We're lucky to have him with us today. Frederick, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, Alexander. Thank you for having me. And thank you for the opportunity to do this webinar. And what we are going to discuss in the next 25 minutes is what every CIO should know about DevOps. How to implement DevOps effectively, what metrics the CEO should focus on, if you do, what to promise maybe to the board of directors, and how to build high-performing IT. But the key question is, what should a CIO know about DevOps? And this is, for me, something, it was a practical, real-life question about a year and a half ago. I was helping this large international transport company. I was helping the IT management team, and they were thinking about doing Agile and doing DevOps. And then somewhere along our program, the question came up, what is the role of the CIO in all of this? And well, that particular CIO, he thought that, well, knowing about DevOps wasn't really that important. So what we eventually did is we organized a visit to another company. It's called ING Bank in the Netherlands, and it's a front runner in the whole DevOps movement, if you will. Their CIO, Ron van Kemenade, he's been doing talks, for example, at the DevOps Enterprise Summit last year. So it's a company that has gone quite a distance on their own DevOps journey. And the reason we set up this visit is due to the fact that the CIO of this transport company I was trying to help was really into thinking that DevOps is about a reorganization. It's about building new departments, new structures within, how to set up teams, how to allocate resources. And that was about the only thing he knew about DevOps. So we took him to the ING. And the people at ING were telling about their DevOps journey. And their whole story wasn't about any sort of organization restructuring at all. It was only about building an engineering culture. And that really opened up the eyes of the CIO and his senior leadership team at this transport company, that there was a lot more to DevOps than well, he was beforehand willing to admit. And it was a good thing, because later on in our program, well, even the role of the CIO was important. So basically, that is the reason that we came up with this topic: what every CIO should know about DevOps. And if I would only have a few, well, maybe 30 seconds to answer that question, to me, it would be the fact that the CIO should really understand that doing DevOps is about creating a DevOps culture. And a DevOps is, of course, many things to many people. And maybe from a CIO and a business perspective, you can look at what we're trying to achieve with doing DevOps. And then you get into performance things like more frequent deployments, faster recovery from failures, shorter lead times to mean time to repair when there are issues. And all these things is more sort of the promise of DevOps. But the real key to doing DevOps is about creating this DevOps culture. And not just about, let's say, organization or automation or stuff like that. So the one thing I think a CIO should know about DevOps is that it's about culture. And the culture, to me, that is something that comes from a consistent behavior of a group of people. It might be the whole organization, it might be one or more teams, but the way these people act in their profession, the way they collaborate with each other, that is something that is coming really close to the culture of the organization or parts of the organization. And as a CIO and the senior leadership team should really understand what kind of behavior it is that we're trying to achieve. So I've listed a few examples of things you might hear on a daily basis when it's about DevOps. It's about things like we automate stuff if we're doing manual tasks too many times. We're using version control, and you might hear somebody say, if it's not in version control, it does not exist. And it's about all these sorts of behavior that that comes with having a DevOps culture. And at the visit at the ING organization, and with these people talking about the engineering culture, slowly during that 1 hour presentation, all these blank spots in the culture they were trying to achieve were being filled in. And it really helped the team visiting from our customer to get a clear sense of what that culture actually might be. And it started off a great discussion of where within our program we would want to go with our culture and our program. But that's about culture, and I think it's well, the key aspect that you should know about. But if you implement DevOps effectively, it's of course about culture, but underlying there are many more concrete things that you need to address. So it's about an agile and lean way of working. It's about doing continuous delivery and getting good at it. It probably will have to do with your IT infrastructure, either being that the software architecture. You might start using microservices and then container technology and stuff like that. You might be building this cloud technology or getting a partner involved for that, building an intelligent infrastructure. And it also should be about talent management. But one of the good talks I recently heard at the DevOps Enterprise Summit in San Francisco was this speaker who eventually, when talking about their DevOps journey, said the whole technical stuff is the easy part, relatively to building this DevOps culture, if you will. So yes, DevOps is many things to many people. And probably in any organization there are people already doing stuff with DevOps. And it's not that it's wrong, but if you combine the whole, then you should always strive to have a integral approach and to make sure that no bits are being left out. So that's also a vital role from the senior leadership team to make sure that the whole is addressed. So that's the second thing that I think should be on the mind of the CIO and the senior leadership team. And when I say senior leadership team, that doesn't necessarily mean all the people in a management role. It could also be about other roles, people doing other roles within the company, but who in one way or another are part of this sort of senior leadership team, if you will. And of course, at some point during this webinar, the question might pop up, why is DevOps that important? And for that, I would say revisit, if you will, the first webinar in this series by my colleague Niels. Because what he mentioned is that what we see today within IT is this really big transition from a more classical way of producing value within IT to a more lean way of manufacturing and product management, product development that is happening now. And to me, that is one of the major transitions IT is going through, I think, within the last 15 or maybe 20 years. So it's a huge step, and we call it DevOps at the moment. And I think that alone should get the attention of every CIO out there. Right. So it's about culture. It's about taking a integral approach. And if you then think, okay, but how do we get a sense of the impact of doing DevOps? Because you're talking about culture, which is not really tangible. So if you look at the outcomes and the metrics you should focus on, then I think there are basically 5 metrics that are really important. And if you have a high-performing IT team, then these main 4 or 5 KPIs, metrics, they should really perform on that in a very good way. And basically what these top 4 metrics say is 2 are about speed and agility, and the other 2 are about stability and reliability. And the sense with DevOps is that these go hand in hand. So if you improve and getting really good at agility and things like speed, you will also improve on stability and reliability. And for the past couple of years, there have been research to DevOps in the State of DevOps report. You can read about it, and it clearly shows from the data that if you get really good at one, you also get really good at the other. And the 4 metrics are about deployment frequency. So how many times are you capable of deploying new sorts of codes, applications, functionality into your production environment? Coupled with that is the lead time for changes. So how long is the lead time, let's say, from committing some new code to successfully deploying it and running it into the production environment? And on the stability side, it's about things like mean time to recover and whether or not the change that you did has any sort of failure. It might be a slightly less optimal services, or it might be a complete outage, like the Amazon Web Services a couple of days ago. And of course, all these ties into whether or not there is customer satisfaction. And the good thing about these top 4 metrics, if you follow that, you get a real sense of the impact of doing DevOps. And the one thing that is really predictive in these metrics is your deployment frequency. Organizations that are capable of doing multiple deployments per day are also very good at having very short lead times, a very quick mean time to recover, and a very low change failure rate. So that's basically the one metric that is really predictive in this. But still, how do we go about measuring culture? And that to me is a bit more difficult. So if you would measure sort of leading indicators that predict whether or not your culture is in the right place, then basically we've got 2 things to reach out to hand out to you. One is an example, and it comes from our DevOps Fundamentals courseware, and it's about sort of a survey, an assessment that you can do on multiple topics, even the technical topics as well. But basically what it says is it predicts culture, whether or not your culture is capable of dealing with all these technical elements like doing these improvements and product thinking and things like that. And another thing that I would recommend to use is the Spotify health check that you can see on the right side of the screen. That's a really nice tool that you can download online and that you can do with teams, and that you can really use to track their progress and see whether or not the culture that you're aiming for is developing in the right direction. So if you're a CIO or in senior management and you want to know about the impact of DevOps and whether or not you're on the right track, I would say make sure that teams within the organization do these self-assessments and make sure you get factual data on the metrics on the previous slide. And if you do, well, then it says something about the ability for IT to get into this thing called flow, which basically means that you get a very smooth operation and things go through the development pipeline in a really quick way, bringing value to customers and stakeholders in a really quick way. And that's of course a good thing, because one of the things you might face as a CIO is the question what to promise to the board of directors, to your colleagues, because they're seeing all this stuff happening within IT, hopefully a lot of happy people telling with a big smile about doing DevOps and the things they achieve. And to me, you can promise whatever you like to your board of directors, but the key message for me would be that you promise them highly engaged employees, highly motivated people. And if you look at motivation, then I always talk about the 3 elements that Daniel Pink introduced: the autonomy of a team, of an employee, mastery, getting really good at it, having the opportunity to learn, and have a strong sense of purpose in what you're doing. And these 3 elements combined lead to high motivation and high engagement of employees. And again, recent studies have shown that if you have really high engaged employees, that has a really tremendous benefit for growing revenues, adding more value. But not only that, also with recruiting more smart people. The many recommendations as a great place to work comes from having a highly engaged staff. So basically what might happen, and if it does, then that's a sign you're on the right track, is that your potential hiring problem, finding really smart people to come to work for you, just might disappear by doing DevOps, which of course is a very good sign. But the key message again to me would be highly engaged employees, because that's where I think DevOps makes a real difference. By getting into flow, by making sure that there is all these sort of coordination and activities that we would classify as being waste are taken out of the system. All these things that irritate people on the ops side, on the dev side, on the security side. When you take that out, well, the happiness on the work floor and in the workforce really should start growing. So it's about culture. It's about an integral approach. It's about choosing the right metrics. It's about making sure that you follow as a leading indicator for success how the culture is developing. It's about making sure that you have highly engaged people that eventually deliver more value to the business, and hopefully will help with engaging more new employees that you would like to bring on board in the organization. But there is one more thing from a leadership perspective, and that is that you are tasked with the same challenge that many team leaders within your own organization are challenged as well. And that is, of course, building this high-performing team. Your leadership team is a team that should also be looked upon just like any other team within the IT organization or in the organization as a whole, that should communicate and collaborate in a really strong and meaningful way. So it's about building high-performing IT, and that starts with the leadership team under the guidance of maybe the CIO. And if you then look at the leadership dimensions, it's about bringing inspiration to the people on board of your team, creating this environment where people trust each other. And if you as a team leader are not setting a sort of example and are not acting as a role model, then that is a really difficult thing to achieve. And that, of course, does not help with resolving difference of opinion and potentially conflicts within the team. So it's about inspiration, it's about bringing trust and being trusted, and in the end, it's about increasing cooperation And the things that you need to do to get there, one thing is, well, what I would like to call communicate like a broken record. It means repeating your message again, again, and again. It's about communicating the vision, the direction, all this kinds of stuff. But in my experience, you can't communicate this enough because it sort of easily disappears with the people that you reach out to, and yet there is always a very strong desire to get a clear vision communicated to one another. And in the end, it's about stretching the ambition, because all these things are fine and well, but if you get into a really strong team, high performing, then of course you should take sort of advantage of it, test it, and stretch the ambition, stretch the goals the team is setting out for themselves. So in the end, to us at Quint, Wellington, Redwood, the real starting point for any DevOps journey is in the boardroom. And if you recall the first webinar by my colleague Niels, he talked about 4 different DevOps journeys that you can follow. And it doesn't really matter what DevOps journey you choose. It might already be chosen for you, but in the end, the real starting point should be in the boardroom, because that's where the deciding element in setting up this DevOps culture, or engineering culture, if you will, is starting from. And again, to summarize what I think any CIO should know about DevOps. Well, first, DevOps is something you should not miss. Recently heard somebody saying that, well, you've got 2 kinds of companies. You've got companies doing DevOps and companies that don't exist anymore and didn't do DevOps. I think that's a bit harsh, but I think it's more than relevant enough to take notice. And if you do, then remember, DevOps, it's about culture. The technology associated with DevOps is really important, but it's relatively the easy bit. Might not be in the beginning, but in the end, you will master the technology and you will still be working on getting that culture right and keeping it in the right place. So becoming a learning organization is the vital thing to achieve. It's about making sure that, although it's about culture, there are lots of elements to DevOps, and it should all be addressed in a sensible, balanced way. Well, the metrics to choose, we've talked about that. Do keep the culture in check and follow it as a leading indicator for success. And if you want to start doing DevOps tomorrow, start with your own leadership team. What should be changed within such a team to set an example and be a role model as a team for high-performing IT and building that yourself? Well, Alex, that is basically my 25-minute answer to what a CIO should know about DevOps, according to Quint, Wellington, Redwood.
Awesome. Thanks for the great presentation, Frederick, as always. And connected to that is our knowledge communities that Quint is a part of. You mentioned DASA there. We are one of the founding members of the DevOps Agile Skills Association. We were also one of the founding members of the Lean IT Association, which covers, the domain of Lean IT and bringing that whole philosophy to IT. And we're part of that community as well. We have plenty of examples on our website. We have white papers, articles all over DevOps, Lean IT, ITSM, all of the domains in which we cover within Quint. And if you have any questions whatsoever, I know that you can reach out to us directly. I know Frederick is accessible. He loves to talk DevOps. And using the following methods, you can reach out to us. Ask for Frederick directly if you'd like to talk DevOps. Otherwise, we're active on every social media network. Feel free to follow us. And that's where I'm going to leave everyone today. Thank you again for joining. And for those of you who made it to all of our webinars in this series, thank you so much. Thank you for the support. Have a fantastic day.